Hello, I'm Brian Boyer, and I have a new book available from Winding Road Stories called KINETIC, which is a violent, transgressive horror novel set in New York City. So I decided to participate in a New York City book tag video. Question 1: what is your favorite book set in New York City? Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin, published in 1967. In Rosemary's Baby, a couple move into a New York City apartment building called the Branford, which Ira Levin fashioned after the Dakota on Central Park West, which is the apartment building in front of which John Lennon was assassinated 13 years later by a deranged fan in 1980. And in my novel, KINETIC, I fashioned a building called the Rosera after both of those buildings. And it's basically set in the exact same location on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And the name of my building, the Rosera, spelled Rosira, is a combination of the first three letters of Rosemary's Baby and the first three letters of Ira Levin's name. So yeah, there is a lineage there and a lot of other connections between Rosemary's Baby and KINETIC. Question 2. New York City is famous for its skyscrapers. What is the tallest building you've ever been to? I've driven by a lot of skyscrapers. The Sears Tower in Chicago, the Library Tower in Los Angeles, the Bell South Tower in Nashville. The list goes on, but I don't think I've ever been inside any of them. Not that I can remember anyway. Question 3. New York, New York. So good they named it twice. What is the last book you reread? Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite, which is my all-time favorite vampire novel. Question 4. American Psycho is a disturbing novel set in New York City. What is the most disturbing book you have ever read? The book that was the most disturbing to me is The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. And there is a film adaptation that is nearly as disturbing as the book. But yeah, Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door remains the most disturbing novel I have ever read. Question 5. Where were you when 9/11 happened? I was living in my hometown of Beckley, West Virginia once again, after moving to Nashville to attend Watkins Film School for 2 years. The phone rang around 10 o'clock that morning and woke me up. And I'd only been asleep for about 2 hours, and I was still drunk because I stayed drunk 24/7 back then. Anyway, I was like, hello, and the lady was like, may I speak with Brian, please? And I said, this is Brian. And she said, hi, Brian, this is your attorney, John Wooten's secretary, Kelly. John wanted me to call you and let you know that they finally scheduled your DMV hearing for your felony DUI. The hearing is set for tomorrow, Wednesday morning, September 12th at 9 a.m. We're sorry for the short notice, but we literally just found out. And I was like, okay, thank you. So then I got up, brushed my teeth, took a few shots of whiskey, and turned the TV on for background noise. And it was set to a news channel, and the second tower had just collapsed. I stood there stunned. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because it had just happened, they were still showing videos of people jumping from the buildings, which they stopped showing soon thereafter. Some people held hands while they jumped from like up on the 100th floor to escape the flames of transcontinental jet fuel. Some people tried to make parachutes out of tablecloths from the windows on the World Restaurant up on the 110th floor. A lot of people stood trapped at windows with nowhere else to go, just staring way down for like 45 minutes and contemplating their fate. And they didn't jump until their backs began to bake. I walked outside and looked up at the sky on that Tuesday morning, and it was the bluest and the clearest I had ever seen it. And I remember thinking, for the first time in my lifetime, there are no airplanes in that sky, because all U.S. airspace had been closed. The next day at the DMV hearing, as the DMV commissioner and my attorney and I all three sat in that courtroom waiting for the arresting officer to show up, the DMV commissioner looked down at his watch and said, if that arresting officer is not here soon, I'm dismissing the case. I mean, we were all still reeling from the events of the day before, and everything else just seemed so insignificant. Anyway, The clock struck 9:30 and the arresting officer had not shown up. They never did when John Wooten was your attorney because they knew they were going to lose. Case dismissed. Question 6. What is your favorite movie set in New York City? Goodfellas from 1990, which follows Henry Hill as he becomes infatuated with the mafia in a working class Italian-American neighborhood in Brooklyn. Question 7. Have you ever been to New York City? No, I have been all across America, but the farthest northeast I've ever been is like all throughout Pennsylvania and Maryland and Virginia and Washington, D.C., but I have never been to New York. I've been to Chicago and I lived in Los Angeles briefly in 2013. Like I said, I have been all across America. I have lived in Nashville, Charlotte, Atlanta. I even lived in Panama City Beach briefly in 1996, but I have never been to New York. I'd like to go there sometime, though. I've just never gotten around to it. Question 8. Who is your favorite painter from New York? Does Rob Zombie count? He's one of my favorite painters. He was born in Massachusetts and he currently lives in LA, but he moved to New York after graduating from high school in 1983. So he's not from New York, but he formed White Zombie there and he spent a lot of time in New York. So there's got to be a lot of New York City in his soul, right? So yeah, I'll go with him, Rob Zombie. Question 9. What is your favorite song about New York? I'll go with Brooklyn's Finest by Jay-Z, featuring the Notorious B.I.G. from Jay-Z's 1996 debut album, Reasonable Doubt. Question 10. What is your favorite Broadway show or musical? I don't have one. Broadway shows and musicals are not my thing. Question 11. Final question. New York City is seen as the publishing capital of the world. What is your favorite publishing house? I'll go with the 3 who published my last 3 releases, Outcast Press, Uncomfortably Dark Press, and Winding Road Stories. So, shout out to Paige Johnson and Sebastian Weiss at Outcast Press, who published my novella, Kill Factor, earlier this year. Shout out to the insanely talented writer and fantastic human being, Candace Nola at Uncomfortably Dark Press, who published my novel, Old Too Soon, earlier this year, and also my collection, Blackout. And of course, shout out to the amazing Michael Dolan at Winding Road Stories, who published this novel, Metro Kinetic. One of my favorite authors, Claire Castleberry, introduced me to Michael Dolan. And although I had never been to New York, Michael Dolan lives in New York. And it is he who wrote the description that appears on the back of Metro Kinetic, which ends with these words. Metro Kinetic is the newest frenetic novel from award-winning horror author Brian Boyer. Read it and you'll never see New York City the same way again. So yeah, maybe there's some New York City in my soul too, even though my body has never been there. Anyway, that's all. Thanks for watching my New York City book tag video. I hope you'll check out my latest release, a violent, transgressive horror novel from Winding Road Stories called Metro Kinetic. Thanks a lot.